Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's legal team is in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court, or High Court, I beg your pardon, this morning, and that is to appeal the court's decision to reject her application, declaring her arrest and extradition illegal. Last month, the court dismissed her application with costs on the basis that she consented to being brought back into this country. It's after her lawyers argued that her transfer to South Africa was an extradition disguised as deportation. Magudumana was captured alongside her lover and convicted murderer Thabo Bester in Tanzania back in April. In fact, this was after Bester faced his death and escaped from prison in May last year. Magudumana will not be physically in court today. However, the Home Affairs Department, meanwhile, the Home Affairs Department has withdrawn its cross-appeal in this matter. Let's distill this information for you. Bring in Linda Mnisi with us now in our Randburg studios for more. Linda, you've watched the various aspects of the story. In fact, as recently as yesterday, you were at Hoshi Mampuru where Thabo Bester is being kept. But let's focus on today's developments in Bloemfontein more specifically. What is Dr. Nandipha Magudumana asking for?
Well, you'll remember that the crux of her application was that, her extradition or her deportation was illegal. Her being brought into South Africa was illegal. She claimed that she was arrested by police in Tanzania. She was blindfolded, put on a plane, and that was, the consequences of, collusion between South African officials and Tanzanian officials. So in looking at all the submissions that were made by her lawyers as well as the respondents in this matter, the judge made a determination that in fact she was right. This was an extradition disguised as a deportation, which is something that the Constitution frowns upon. There are cases, that have sat in our courts that deal specifically with this because it undermines a number of laws that we have, not only locally but also internationally. But then you'll remember, when it comes to deportation, a country like Tanzania can exercise its own discretion on whether it wants to deport you or not. But when it comes to extradition, then the issue of consent comes in. You'll remember the SAPS filed responded that in fact Nandipha Magudumana said that she wanted to come back to South Africa to her children, and that was regarded as consent that is required in the process of extradition. Now, what Magudumana is arguing is that you can't say that my deportation was an extradition, and then come back and say, which was unlawful, then come back and say, because I consented, my consent does not make the entire process legal. It is illegal, and therefore I need to be granted the prayers that I set out in that particular application. But we saw, as you spoke, the Home Affairs Department coming back and saying, well, we want to cross-appeal, meaning that they wanted to challenge the reasons, not so much the ruling, but the reasons that the court made and the authorities that it relied on to make this ruling. And they're saying, well, we want you to change that because perhaps it's seen as though it gives Nandipha a leg to stand on when she goes to the Supreme Court of Appeal, or if she'll ever get there.
Yeah, but we know how this story usually unfolds, right? People appeal all the way to the top. I wonder to what extent, Linda, this is new substance being brought into the case, or pretty much the reheating of an old meal here from Nandipha Magudumana's part.
Absolutely. And one thing that, a number of legal analysts are telling us is that the ultimate goal for Nandipha here is the fact that she does not want to be prosecuted. If she's granted the prayers that she seeks in this particular matter, she'll come back and say, the state can't come to court with dirty hands. It must come with clean hands. The entire process has been messed up. Even though they're going to try to arrest her after that, it's likely that she's also going to challenge that. So it seems to quite a number of legal analysts that she is trying to avoid setting foot in a trial court, which, of course, will have to deal with the allegations of her involvement in the bodies, as well as Thabo Bester's prison escape. So this looks like a long-term plan to get to the final destination, and the final destination being you can't come to court with dirty hands. And of course, it's quite interesting given the fact that when you deal with issues of extradition, and her case in particular, and looking at other cases that have been cited in this matter. The courts are quite clear that you can't deport a person, extradite them under the guise of deportation. That muddies the entire process, because the whole point of getting them to the country in the first place was for prosecution. So you knew exactly what that was. But now the Home Affairs Department has withdrawn that cross appeal, and they're saying we will abide by whatever decision that the court will take. Quite interesting, given the fact that they fought to join this legal battle.
Yeah, they weren't cited at the beginning and asked to be included.
They asked to be included. They fought to be in this particular application, and now it looks like they're taking the back step, and they're sitting and saying, well, we've done our part. We've opposed. What happens thereafter really will abide by whatever decision that the court has taken. There are mixed reactions around whether or not a court like the Supreme Court of Appeal will grant Nandipha her ultimate goal, or what she wants, really. And, some are saying, well, there's no court that will say that, because if she wants to challenge the whole deportation, extradition thing, she also has to go to Tanzania, because South African laws only, work within South Africa. They don't go beyond the borders of this country. So it's really going to be an interesting one today.
Certainly will be, and it will be quite the outcome if the state is nabbed here on the basis of a procedural flaw and not the substance of the case itself. Linda Mnisi, thanks very much indeed. Watching that story quite closely, of course, as it continues to unfold once again in the Bloemfontein High Court.